For millions of years, the Galactic Archive stored records of every civilization that had ever risen among the stars. Some species were known for wisdom. Some for trade. Others were remembered for terrible wars that nearly destroyed the galaxy. But among all those records, one warning appeared again and again. It was written in the oldest language known to the galaxy. A simple sentence repeated across thousands of files. Avoid Sol 3. Sol 3 was the third planet of a small yellow star system. To most civilizations, it looked unimportant. The planet was young compared to ancient worlds. Its technology was primitive. Its people were divided into nations that argued with each other constantly. In short, it looked harmless. But the warning did not come from ordinary historians. It came from the ancients. The ancients were the first great civilization of the galaxy. Long before most species even left their home planets, the ancients had already mastered faster-than-light travel. They had built stargates, controlled black holes, and explored the farthest edges of the galaxy. Even the most powerful modern empires still studied ancient technology, hoping to understand even a small part of it. So when the ancients left a warning about Sol 3, it should have been taken seriously. But time changes everything. Millions of years passed. The ancients disappeared. Their warnings slowly became myths. And many younger civilizations began to believe the ancients had simply been wrong. One of those civilizations was the Ziran Dominion. The Zirans were strong, proud, and extremely confident in their power. Their empire controlled thousands of star systems. Their fleets were among the largest in the galaxy. When a young Ziran officer discovered the ancient warning about Sol 3, he laughed. "Fear a primitive species," he said. "Impossible." The message quickly reached the Dominion's military command. Soon, a massive fleet gathered in orbit around the Ziran capital world. Hundreds of warships prepared for hyperspace travel. Their destination was the Sol system. Before the fleet departed, their admiral studied the latest reports about the planet called Earth. According to their scanners, humans had only recently developed basic space travel. Their weapons were simple chemical rockets and small nuclear devices. Their starships could not even leave their own system yet. Compared to the Ziran fleet, humanity looked completely helpless. The admiral closed the report and smiled. "Ancient myths should not guide modern empires," he said. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. Days later, the Ziran armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system. At first, everything looked normal. The star burned quietly at the center of the system. Several rocky planets orbited nearby. Farther out, large gas giants slowly moved through space. And there, exactly where the report said it would be, was the small blue planet called Earth. But the moment the fleet arrived, something strange happened. Their sensors detected a signal. It was extremely old. Older than any known galactic civilization. The signal was weak but clear, repeating over and over across the system. Ziran technicians rushed to decode it. When the translation finally appeared on the admiral's screen, the bridge of the flagship became completely silent. The message was written in the language of the ancients. And it said only one thing. Warning. Containment world detected. The admiral frowned. "Containment?" he asked. Before anyone could answer, a second signal suddenly appeared. This one was even older. The translation slowly formed on the screen. "If the species of Earth ever discovers their true nature, the galaxy will not survive." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then one of the officers laughed nervously. "Ancient superstition," he said. The admiral nodded. "Yes. Nothing more." He turned toward the giant blue planet visible through the observation window. A primitive world. A weak species. Nothing the Ziran Dominion could not control. "Prepare the fleet," the admiral ordered calmly. "Begin approach toward Earth." But far away from the Ziran ships, deep beneath Earth's oceans, something ancient had just noticed their arrival. And after millions of years of silence, it had begun to wake up. The Ziran fleet moved deeper into the Sol system. Hundreds of massive warships glided silently through space, their dark metal hulls reflecting the distant light of the yellow star. To the Zirans, this mission still felt simple. The warnings from the ancients were strange, but the evidence in front of them was clear. Earth was weak. Their long-range scanners showed cities filled with lights, aircraft moving through the sky, and thousands of satellites orbiting the planet. Humans had begun exploring space, but only in small steps. They were far from becoming a galactic civilization. Inside the Ziran flagship, scientists studied the planet carefully. They monitored human communications, observed military bases, and scanned the biological data of the species. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Humans were physically fragile compared to many galactic species. Their bones could break easily. Their skin was thin. Their bodies could not survive extreme environments. But one Ziran scientist noticed something strange while analyzing human genetic data. "Commander," she said slowly. "You should see this." The commander walked over to the display screen. At first the data looked normal. A long chain of genetic code, filled with information that shaped the human body. But hidden deep inside the sequence was something that did not belong. A pattern. A perfectly structured pattern. It was too organized to be natural. "This section of DNA is not biological," the scientist explained. "It looks artificial." More researchers quickly gathered around the screen. They zoomed in further. The strange sequence appeared again and again, hidden in different parts of the human genome. It looked like a complex lock built directly into the genetic structure of every human being. And even stranger, the code inside the lock was far more advanced than anything the Zirans had ever seen. The room grew quiet. "Who built this?" one scientist whispered. The answer slowly became obvious. The ancients. But why would the ancients modify an entire species? The commander stared at the screen, thinking. "If this is ancient technology," he said, "then it must have a purpose." Another scientist spoke carefully. "It might be hiding something." Those words changed everything. The commander immediately contacted the admiral. Within minutes, the fleet's top scientists gathered to discuss the discovery. Some believed the genetic lock protected a powerful biological ability. Others believed it might contain hidden technology placed inside humanity long ago. If that was true, then unlocking it could reveal something incredibly valuable. The admiral listened quietly as the scientists argued. Finally, he raised his hand. "Can you open the lock?" he asked. The lead scientist hesitated. "It is extremely complex," she said. "But yes, we believe we can activate it." The admiral looked toward the distant blue planet on the main display. The ancient warning still echoed in his mind. Containment world. If humans discover their true nature. For a brief moment, doubt crossed his thoughts. But the Ziran Dominion did not fear mysteries. They conquered them. "Do it," the admiral ordered. The scientists immediately began their work. Using advanced bioscanners, they carefully activated a small portion of the strange DNA structure taken from human samples. At first, nothing happened. The scientists leaned closer to their screens, studying the results. Then suddenly every light in the laboratory flickered. The room went dark for half a second. All across the Ziran flagship, systems shut down and restarted. Alarms began sounding. Power levels fluctuated wildly. The scientists stared at their equipment in confusion. "What just happened?" someone asked. Before anyone could answer, the DNA sample on the screen began changing. The artificial sequence was no longer dormant. It was active. Energy readings started climbing rapidly. The numbers were impossible. One of the scientists felt cold fear crawl up his spine. This "This isn't a lock," he whispered. "It's a seal." Across the Ziran fleet, strange energy waves began spreading through every ship. Deep inside their systems, something ancient was reacting. And millions of kilometers away, on the quiet blue world called Earth, billions of humans carried the same seal within their bodies. A prison placed inside an entire species. And the Zirans had just begun to open it. The alarms across the Ziran flagship would not stop. Red warning lights flashed across every wall as energy readings continued to rise. Engineers rushed through the corridors, trying to understand what was happening. Entire sections of the ship were shutting down without explanation. On the bridge, the admiral stared at the sensor reports with growing concern. "Report," he demanded. A technician stepped forward, his voice tense. "Energy levels are rising across the entire fleet. We cannot identify the source." "That is impossible," the admiral said. "We have not fired any weapons." "That is the problem, sir," the technician replied. "The energy is not coming from our systems." Another officer suddenly turned toward his console. "Admiral, the energy is spreading." "From where?" The officer hesitated before answering. "From the laboratory." At that moment, the lead scientist burst onto the bridge. Her face was pale with fear. "Admiral, we must stop the experiment immediately." "What happened?" he asked sharply. "The genetic lock we activated, it was never meant to be opened." The bridge fell silent. The scientist quickly pulled up a display of the human DNA structure. The strange artificial sequence was now glowing with energy patterns that no one had ever seen before. "This structure is not just technology," she explained. "It is a containment system." "Containment for what?" the admiral asked. The scientist took a slow breath. "We believe the ancients discovered something long ago. Something extremely dangerous." Another officer frowned. "A weapon?" "No," the scientist replied quietly. "Something worse." She expanded the data further, revealing ancient signals hidden inside the genetic code. "These patterns are millions of years old. They are older than most civilizations in the galaxy." The admiral's expression hardened. "Explain." The scientist spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully. "The ancients encountered a form of energy that could destroy entire star systems. It was unstable and impossible to control. They tried many ways to contain it." "And?" the admiral asked. "They failed." A heavy silence filled the bridge. "They could not destroy it," the scientist continued. "They could not trap it in machines. It kept escaping." "So what did they do?" the admiral asked. The scientist looked directly at him. "They created a living prison." No one on the bridge moved. "A species capable of safely holding the energy inside their biology," she explained. "A species that could stabilize the power naturally." The admiral slowly turned his eyes toward the blue planet displayed on the main screen. "Humans," he said quietly. The scientist nodded. "The energy has been safely contained inside human DNA for millions of years. The genetic lock keeps it stable." Another officer suddenly realized the problem. "And we just activated that lock." "Yes," the scientist said. "Which means the containment is weakening." As if responding to her words, the entire ship shook violently. A massive surge of energy passed through the flagship. Several consoles exploded in sparks. "Admiral," an officer shouted. "One of our destroyers just vanished." The admiral turned toward the tactical display. A ship at the edge of the formation had simply disappeared. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Moments later, another ship twisted apart like metal being crushed by invisible hands. Panic spread across the bridge. "What is happening?" someone yelled. The scientist looked at the rising energy readings with horror. "The prison is reacting." "To what?" the admiral demanded. She slowly pointed toward the planet Earth. To its source. The containment system was designed to stay stable near humanity. But the Zirans had taken a piece of that system far away from the planet. Now the ancient energy was trying to return to its natural balance. Across the fleet, more ships began failing. Hull plates bent and twisted. Power systems overloaded. Entire vessels vanished from sensors. The admiral finally understood the terrible mistake they had made. "We need to leave this system," he said immediately. "Order full retreat." But as the fleet began preparing for hyperspace jump, a new message appeared on every screen across every Ziran ship. It was another ancient warning. One that had remained hidden until the seal was disturbed. The translation appeared slowly. Containment failure detected. Then a second line followed. Warning, humanity must remain alive. Because if the human species ever disappeared, the thing they contained would be free. And the galaxy would not survive. The Ziran fleet was falling apart. Warships that had once conquered entire star systems were now drifting helplessly through space. Engines failed without warning. Hulls twisted under invisible pressure. Entire sections of ships simply vanished as if space itself had swallowed them. On the flagship bridge, the admiral gripped the command rail tightly as another cruiser disappeared from the tactical display. "How many ships lost?" he demanded. 17, no, 23 now, the tactical officer replied with a shaking voice. The admiral stared at the glowing blue planet of Earth on the main screen. Everything pointed to that world. The strange energy surges. The genetic seal. The ancient warnings. It was all connected to humanity. "We must leave immediately," the admiral ordered. Preparing emergency hyperspace jump, the navigation officer replied. But before the jump could begin, every system on the flagship suddenly froze. Lights flickered. Screens went dark. Then the entire ship trembled as an enormous wave of energy passed through the fleet. Across the bridge, consoles exploded with sparks. "Energy spike detected," a technician shouted. "Source?" the admiral asked. The technician hesitated. "Earth." At that exact moment, something strange began happening on the blue planet below. Across cities, oceans, and mountains, humans continued their normal lives. People drove through busy streets. Children studied in classrooms. Scientists worked quietly in laboratories. But deep inside every human body, something had begun to change. The ancient seal hidden in their DNA had been disturbed. And for the first time in millions of years, it was reacting. In a research facility on Earth, a group of astronomers suddenly noticed something unusual. Energy readings from orbit were rising. Satellites were detecting waves of radiation they had never seen before. "Is it a solar flare?" one scientist asked. Another shook her head. "No, it's coming from Earth itself." Far above the planet, the Ziran fleet continued to collapse. Ships trying to jump to hyperspace failed instantly. Navigation systems refused to activate. The energy surrounding the fleet was growing stronger. And it was pulling toward the planet. On the flagship, the lead scientist stared at the data with wide eyes. "This is impossible," she whispered. "What is it now?" the admiral asked impatiently. "The energy, it is stabilizing." "Stabilizing?" he repeated. "Yes," she said slowly. "But not because of our technology." She pointed to the planet on the screen. "It is reacting to humans." The admiral frowned. "What do you mean?" "The containment system was designed to stay balanced near the human species," she explained. "Their biology naturally stabilizes the energy. So why is it attacking our fleet?" "Because we moved part of the containment away from its natural environment." She paused before finishing her thought. "To the energy we are carrying, humans are the center of the prison." Another violent shock hit the ship. More Ziran vessels were destroyed as the unstable power tried to correct itself. Then suddenly the sensors detected something new. A massive energy field forming around Earth. The readings were unlike anything the Zirans had ever recorded. The scientist leaned closer to her screen. "This cannot be happening," she said. "What?" the Admiral demanded. "The energy is synchronizing with the human population." On Earth, people across the world were beginning to feel strange sensations. Some reported sudden flashes of memory that were not their own. Others felt brief moments where time seemed to slow around them. A pilot flying over the ocean suddenly saw every detail of the clouds and water with impossible clarity. A child looked at the night sky and somehow understood the movement of distant stars. Small changes. Subtle changes. But they were happening everywhere. The ancient system inside human DNA was slowly responding to the disturbance. Not unlocking. Not yet. But waking. Back in orbit, the Ziran admiral finally understood the truth. Humanity was not just containing the dangerous energy. They were controlling it without even knowing. The ancients had created the perfect balance. A species that could live normal lives while quietly stabilizing a power capable of destroying galaxies. And the Zirans had nearly broken that balance. The admiral looked at the remaining ships of his fleet. They had come to conquer Earth. Instead, they had discovered the most dangerous secret in the universe. And now the energy surrounding the planet was growing stronger. If the awakening continued, humanity might eventually learn what they truly were. And if that happened, no empire in the galaxy would ever be able to stop them. The remaining ships of the Ziran fleet finally escaped the Sol system. The moment they jumped into hyperspace, the violent energy storms stopped. Systems slowly stabilized. Damaged ships drifted silently beside the flagship as engineers struggled to restore power. But the fleet that returned was no longer the same. Nearly half their warships had been destroyed. And none of them had even fired a single weapon. On the bridge, the Ziran admiral stood quietly, watching the reports arrive from the surviving vessels. No enemy attacks. No visible defense systems. Just an ancient power connected to a small blue planet. "Status of the fleet?" he asked. 41 ships destroyed, the tactical officer replied. 7 heavily damaged. The rest are operational but unstable. The admiral nodded slowly. They had entered the Sol system as conquerors. They had left as survivors. But their mission was not finished. What they had discovered near Earth could not remain a secret. Within hours, encrypted messages were sent across the galaxy. The Ziran Dominion contacted every major civilization in the Galactic Council. An emergency summit was called. Days later, representatives from dozens of powerful empires gathered inside the massive council chamber orbiting the neutral world of Viral. The room was enormous, filled with floating platforms where alien ambassadors watched the central holographic display. The Ziran admiral stood in the center. "We have discovered something that concerns the entire galaxy," he began. Many leaders looked annoyed. The Zirans were known for exaggerating their victories and problems. But when the admiral showed the first images from the Sol system, the chamber slowly grew silent. Destroyed warships. Impossible energy readings. Ancient warning signals written in the language of the ancients. Then the admiral explained the truth. Human DNA. The genetic seal. The containment system designed millions of years ago. At first, many leaders refused to believe it. One reptilian ambassador spoke angrily. "You expect us to believe that a primitive species contains a galaxy-destroying power?" The admiral did not argue. Instead, he displayed the final ancient archive that had been unlocked during the experiment. The holographic image of an ancient symbol appeared above the chamber. The translation slowly formed beneath it. Project Guardian Species. The chamber became quiet. The admiral continued. The ancients discovered a form of cosmic energy that could not be destroyed. It grows stronger over time and destabilizes entire star systems. A second line of translation appeared. Containment solution, biological stabilizer. More text followed. Species selected, humanity. The leaders of the galaxy stared at the display. For millions of years, the most dangerous force in existence had been safely contained. Inside the human species. Another message appeared. This one was clearly marked as the ancients' final warning. Do not destroy the human species. The admiral let the silence grow before revealing the final line. Without humanity, containment fails. A wave of uneasy whispers spread through the chamber. One by one, the leaders began to understand the terrifying truth. Humanity was not just another civilization waiting to join the galaxy. They were the foundation of its survival. If humans were wiped out, the energy inside them would be released. Entire star systems could collapse. Galaxies might burn. For the first time in recorded history, every empire in the council faced the same impossible question. What should they do with Earth? Some leaders immediately suggested strict observation. Others demanded a protective alliance around the Sol system. A few even suggested secretly guiding humanity's development to make sure they never discovered their true purpose. But the oldest race in the council, the silent and mysterious Lemurians, finally spoke. Their ambassador's voice echoed across the chamber. You misunderstand the situation. Every eye turned toward them. The Lemurian continued calmly. Humanity has already begun to awaken. The chamber froze. The Ziran admiral looked at the ambassador carefully. What do you mean? The Lemurian slowly activated a new holographic display. Energy readings from Earth appeared. The same strange signals the Zirans had detected. But now they were growing stronger. Your fleet disturbed the containment system, the ambassador explained. The balance is changing. A final image appeared above the chamber. The blue planet Earth. Surrounded by a faint but expanding field of ancient energy. The Lemurian spoke one last sentence. The question is no longer how to control humanity. The chamber remained silent as the energy field around Earth slowly expanded. The real question, the Lemurian finished, is whether humanity will choose to protect the galaxy or reshape it.